Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Welcome back. So I asked some of you just now whether you had lunch, and I think 5 people responded. What about the rest of you? You guys had a good lunch? Nasi lemak downstairs? Tea lounge? You're not making much noise for people who had a good lunch. Make some noise, guys. There we go. All right. Okay. Can you guys tell me who's speaking next? Does anybody know? Okay, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome on stage for a very important address about the state of the Ethereum ecosystem by the numbers, Zhong Chang, Head of Research at CoinGecko.
Hello. Okay, great. Good afternoon, everybody. Hope you guys had a good lunch. Well, the title that I originally proposed was kind of long, and this is kind of the shorter title, but still fairly long. So I'm about to talk about the state of Ethereum by the numbers. It's going to be pretty data-driven, like in typical CoinGecko style, since work for CoinGecko. What else, guys? Yes. So before we begin, obviously none of this is financial advice. We do not provide financial advice, Please take this as information only. Yeah. Let's get straight into it. So this is what the price chart looks like. This is probably what you open CoinGecko every other day or every day multiple times, and then you look and you try to see whether the ETH in your MetaMask wallet is up or in your exchange is up. The good news is it's in the green, right? So if you look back in January, I know people are kind of tired. Everyone's shitting on Ethereum. But it's still up by 16.7%, and I believe after last night, it's gotten a bit better, right? The challenge, I think, is that compared against the overall market and compared against who you would think are the peers of Ethereum, so Bitcoin and Sol, it's actually not doing as well, right? So the total crypto market actually appreciated by close to 40%. A lot of it actually driven by Bitcoin. Bitcoin is actually up by 54%, right? And 55%, right? And actually it's increasing its dominance. So, and then you have Solana as well. So I guess fundamentally, I think we always say price improves fundamentals, right? So the better the price, the better the fundamentals. And unfortunately, I guess with Ethereum, it's kind of lagging, I guess, in terms of price action. You can look at ETH BTC ratio. I have the Sol ETH ratio up as well. Pretty much one is at an all-time low, close to kind of low compared to where it was in 2021 April. Sol ETH is now an all-time high. All kind of not good news for Ethereum, but also I guess if you're a trader or if you're looking at the price action, you're wondering is this sort of the bottom or whatever relative to the other coins, right? But I think it's important to put into context. Price is not the only thing. You're at an ETHKL event, so hopefully you care more than the price, right? And I think if you just look at we just want to look at the transactions and all the activity that's happening on chain, and the gray bar that I have down there, or the gray row, or the gray line that right at the bottom is actually Ethereum, right? So that's mainnet. And if you think about it, you go back to when Ethereum started talking about scaling and layer 2 and all that stuff, right? And just go back to 2021, you realize that actually it's pretty important because essentially mainnet has maxed out, right? So the number that I have here, you can't really see it, but it's about 1 million, 1.2 million per day transactions that's going through. It's actually the same number. It's the same number that Ethereum was processing as of 2020, 2021, right? So the chain is maxed out. Even now, you say, whether you think it's a bull market, bear market, it's still doing about 1 million plus transactions going through, and that's how much the chain can handle, right? But right now, we have layer 2s, right? So you can see even for just the start of the year, January 2024, right? And up to, the date is September 30th. But pretty much almost doubled the number of transactions going through Ethereum. Right? What you would consider Ethereum in terms of Ethereum, the Ethereum and the broader ecosystem. About 6 million transactions a day to about transactions a day. And if you just go back to 2021, not too long ago. So like I said, we were doing about 1.2 million a day. So this is like a 10x increase, right, in actual transactions that's being executed every day. And I think that's a sign of, where the ecosystem has sort of grown. This wouldn't have been possible without L2s. This would have been possible, if we didn't do the merge, we didn't do Dankun, cost didn't come down, and all of this other good technical things that happened, right? So I think it's important to put this into context. You can see the different L2s. Obviously, Base is winning just in terms of like pure transactions. They now have about 40%. And just one L2 is doing 4 times the transactions of mainnet, right? So, this is conscious strategy, right? This didn't just happen from scratch. Just happened one day, and people fell out of the tree, and suddenly people invented L2s, and they could settle on L1s. And I think it's a credit to the technical innovation and the improvements that have been done in the last couple of years as well. The only downside, right, the only challenge with this, right, and I just want people just to put it all in context, is the last point there, which is, unfortunately, right now, the biggest competitor, Solana, processes 50 million transactions a day, right? Non-vote transactions. This doesn't even count the vote transactions. So we're trying to get to Apple. So that is 5 times all of what the entire Ethereum sort of ecosystem is doing. And I guess that's the biggest challenge, right? Like, back in 2021, previous cycle, the competition was stiff, right? You have all these alt L1s, alt chains, but it wasn't this stiff, right? And right now, there is a real competition. There's a genuine competitor on the block right now with the Ethereum ecosystem, with the EVM ecosystem. And, this is, I guess, again, fear of comparison, competitor. This is the first time there's a credible competitor on the block, right? And it's actually, at this point, I guess, attracting more attention right now, right, onto their ecosystem. Yeah. A complement to that is obviously gas fees, right? And I also want to point out, so again, if you just look at, I have this chart now back to 2021, look at how far the gas fees have fallen, right? So in 2021, it's kind of normal. You'll see gas fees going from like, 250 GUI, 450 GUI. I'll say average is around 150 GUI, right? We're now at 14 GUI, right? So 11 GUI is the average for the whole of September. And actually, if you look at August, right, and you could argue it's because not many transactions happening in August, GUI is the lowest. So gas fees in terms of GUI is the lowest it's ever been in history. It has never been this low, right? We are down to single-digit gas GUI in August, 6.7 average, and the lowest was like 2 GUI on a particular day. It was like 2 GUI to execute transactions. So most of this is obviously due to Dankun, right? So with blobs, with EIP4, 4844, all these things come in, they reduce, the cost of gas fees for L2s, which in turn then reduce, cost of gas fees on mainnet itself, right? And vice versa. And, really, like, it's essentially gone down by 1 order of magnitude if you compare to what it was in 2021. It's the same story as well for L2s. So I put up a table and, I just pick a day. You see now that, they are very, very cheap. And, so some of these are even cheaper, even after you convert to dollars, cheaper than Solana, right? And the whole reason is because of Dankun, right? Essentially also, you move 1 decimal point, pretty much, for most of these chains, right? You pretty much just move 1 decimal point. It's all cheaper. So this whole idea that, not like Dankun is like gonna kill Ethereum and things like that. I think it's kind of policy. And if you were here early this morning, we'll talk about, you'll hear our speakers talk about, we need cheaper, we need more throughput, we need faster, we need people to not have to worry about gas fees. Like this is really becoming a reality. And I think for the infrastructure side, it's sort of there already. And the question actually is, who's going to build the apps that's going to take advantage of all of these things right now? Just from a staking perspective, I think not much to talk about here. There has been a 16.8% increase. The amount of ETH stake actually doubled in 2022, 2023. 2024, I think we've sort of hit almost like it's still some steady growth, but not as much. We now have about 34.6 million ETH stake in the network. In the protocol itself, that's about 28.2% of the total ETH supply. right? And you can see, the competitors up here. I wouldn't speak too much to this. I think, not much has actually changed in a year. I think the hype thing, I guess, is restaking, right? So this year, people start talking about ETHKL and like all the different LRTs. So ETHFI, Renzo, Kel. Sorry if I didn't mention your protocol. But yeah, actually, but if you looked at the amount of ETH that is restaked, actually it's only about 17.6% of this 34.6 million, right? And if you think about it, that's only about 5% of the total supply. There's a lot of hype. Obviously, Eigen just started trading a couple of days ago. Everyone is still paying attention. But I think really the test case here is, are there really going to be AVSs that's going to be created? Is there really going to be L2s that are going to build on this? Are these L2s going to actually lead to more fees that are going to be accrued to eigenlayer? And I think, the proof is still, we're still waiting to discover whether that's going to be true or not. Yeah. DeFi. I guess quite a few people got ticked off by Vitalik Ouroboros' sort of tweet. I am one of them. I will admit, I think, DeFi still remains a key and core part of crypto. DeFi remains a key and core part of Ethereum. And Ethereum is the undisputed leader of DeFi, at least still as of this moment, if you just look at pure TVL numbers, right? And I'll support this as well with a couple of different stats as well as I go on in the few other slides. Ethereum still leads all chains by TVL, and it's not even close, right? So Ethereum has like 58.8% share, Tron has got 10%, and nobody else, and I mean nobody else, including Solana, has cracked 10%, right? So if you just look at where the capital is in terms of people using DeFi, people putting their capital to work, right? If you don't count, people will just hold BTC or hold ETH, and they don't park it in any DeFi protocol. Ethereum is still undisputed. And this chart, I used the stats. I purposely took no liquid staking, right? Because liquid staking is kind of not really DeFi, kind of DeFi, not really DeFi, right? It's kind of cheating a bit, like double counting. If you included liquid staking, it's even higher, right? So Ethereum is like 60+% dominance over this, right? And yeah, I mean, like, it's, I don't think there's anything to argue with this, right? Like, there are new protocols, right, that's happening on Solana and things like that. But by and large, if we just compare sizes, right? So if you're in Malaysia, it's like, if you compare like, I don't know, the Bursa Malaysia against like the Hong Kong Stock Exchange or even like, the US stock exchange, that's just not the same size. We're not talking about the same magnitude. And you can see that, L2s are coming up as well, right? So Arbitrum and Base now have each more than 2 billion in TVL. Blast is doing about 700, Optimism. So Arbitrum and Base, by and large, the largest two. And this is also good news, right? So we are seeing Ethereum increase its TVL, but also there are TVL that's also being accrued to the layer 2s as well, particularly those that are successful, right? I think just to wrap up, I think what's also interesting, I guess, is perhaps a sign of where we are in the market as well. If you look back to the bull cycle, actually Aave had more TVL than Uniswap. If you sum up, Aave V1, V2, V3, Uniswap V1, V2, V3. This has happened again. So Aave actually is now the largest DeFi protocol in terms of TVL. Second sort of slide, I guess, sort of tangential to the previous one is like stablecoins, and it's the same, right? So Ethereum just has more stablecoins than everybody else, sort of combined, right? Ethereum is 50% of all stablecoins. All stablecoins issued in the market, half of them are on Ethereum, right? Tron has 36% share, everyone else less than 3%, right? So again, the size, actually, if you look at the numbers, is crazy. Similar for RWAs, if people talk about institutional adoption, where people are going to create their assets, where are the TradFi guys going to go? Well, turns out they go to Ethereum, right? So Ethereum has like 79, 81% of all RWAs being issued now on chain. It's just, I had to cross the chart because I couldn't show a longer line. Everyone else would disappear. But yeah, I think just in terms of where capital is, again, just in terms of where capital is going, it's still going to Ethereum. I guess some people may say, like, actually, we wish it went to L2s, and to a certain extent, that may be true. But if you want it to be used, for trading and things like that, but with some of these things, people just kind of buy and hold. They don't swap in and swap out too often. It's still okay to be on mainnet, and I think there's a certain level of institutional trust. Obviously, with having an asset that's natively issued on mainnet itself. Something I guess important to point out as well is with stable coins, all the interesting stablecoin experiments are still happening on Ethereum, right? You don't hear too much about a sort of novel stablecoin that's being issued on a different blockchain, right? Ethena is started on Ethereum, right? All the Gold stuff and the Curve USD stuff, whether you believe it's going to work, it's not that big in TVL or whatever, all these interesting experiments are still happening on Ethereum. Trading volume tells the same story. 223 billion now of volume is going through Ethereum ecosystem DEXs across Ethereum, Base, Arbitrum, Optimism, I believe, when I did the math, right? This makes up about 60% of all DEX trading volume, going across the entire DeFi ecosystem, right? What's also interesting, I guess, is where Base and Arbitrum are in terms of the ranking. You can see this goes by just the order. So Ethereum, Solana, Base, Arbitrum, ahead of the 2021, if people can remember, the BSCs, the Trons, Polygon to a certain extent, Avalanche, right? The all L1, all EVM L1s, which you would think direct competitors. They have the same dApps. They have the same sort of EVM structure. Everyone knows how to use a MetaMask. They're already ahead of these guys in terms of trading volume and earlier in terms of TVL as well, right? So pretty interesting, and I think all signs that whatever bad things that you say is still people are down, people are kind of sad about the price, but like lots of things are still happening. Yeah, obviously we all wish it could be bigger, but that's a competitor now. So one of my last few slides. Obviously, we saw the launch of Ethereum ETFs, US spot Ethereum ETFs on July 23rd. That came in, and then it's sort of been, I guess, a quarter of this. Unfortunately, it's not been great, just from a flows perspective. There's been 503.6 million net outflows, largely due to Grayscale, right? ETH. So we saw the same thing happen with the US spot Bitcoin ETFs, right? So ETH actually had 2.9 billion in outflows, and total net outflows about 503. So the rest of the funds actually saw about 1.5 billion in inflows, right? So if you just sort of do the math. However, I think unlike the Bitcoin one, where BlackRock's ETH actually became the largest spot Bitcoin ETF, in this case, Grayscale is still way ahead of the game, right? So Grayscale has the ETH has about 4.33 billion. They actually launched on the same day the ETH Mini futures, the ETH Mini ETF, which is actually the same thing, but just a cheaper version, like with a lower fee. That has about 1 billion. So that's second, and then followed closely by BlackRock. Yeah. If we look at it, AUM on September 30th, it's at about 7.14 billion. That's about 11% of where the US spot Bitcoin ETFs are. Not great. Definitely, like if you just compare on CoinGecko, relative market cap or FDV, it's not the right ratio yet. But I think this may evolve and continue to evolve in the future. Certainly, I think the ETH withdrawals have not really tapered off like we have seen from the Bitcoin ETFs. So there may be somewhere to go until we reach some sort of steady state. Yeah. But I think like I said, I think when we look at Ethereum and people get fixated about the price, it's also important to remind people sort of what's important, or at least what people in Ethereum sort of care about as well. And these are some of the interesting things. So just wanted to read out the line that I have, because it's quite a mouthful, right? So Ethereum is meant to be decentralized, censorship resistant, credibly neutral settlement layer and state engine. state machine, right? Or world computer, as we heard earlier today, going back to the 2017 term. And if you look at the health of the protocol itself, it has never been better, I think, just in terms of achieving these goals that I just read out earlier, right? There's never been more diversity in terms of clients, right? People are using different consensus clients, people are using different execution clients. There are more validators, so that's a validator chart. There are more validators than ever before, right? On Ethereum, that's 1 million. I think we've passed 1 million validators on the network. In fact, it's become a problem for the Ethereum Foundation. They actually want to reduce the number of validators now because there's just too many of them, which is a good problem to have. Earlier in the year, you may have remember we worry about whether block builders will censor OFAC transactions, will stop people's transactions from going through. If you look at the chart, the green part is obviously the non-censoring part, and largely most builders have actually all moved to non-censoring. Right, so you can be confident if you put your transaction through onto the network, it will be processed. It may take a bit longer if you're doing some dodgy things, but it will be processed. That's the roadmap. The other thing, obviously, is layer 2s, and you can see, I guess, this is from L2Beat, where the layer 2s are, and one of the things that people are focused on right now as well on Ethereum is when are they going to decentralize their sequences? For some of them, they need to take the first step. Where are the fraud proofs and things like that? I think those are things that will continue to dominate conversation, at least within the technical community. And I think, again, plays to the aims of being decentralized and censorship resistant. Lastly, obviously, Ethereum is not just about financial services, I guess, and not just about financial sector. There are still all these other things that happen. I think what's good, at least hearing from what's happening this morning and also the discourse on Twitter and other parts, is that we are thinking more now about non-financial use cases that can actually be useful to normal people that can onboard the next generation of 1 billion or even more users onto Ethereum. So yeah, that's sort of the end of my presentation. I hope you found this useful, and I think was really trying to sort of, yes, the price like that, but paint a more optimistic and a more holistic way to look at where the network is, where the ecosystem is, and hopefully people are a bit more optimistic walking out of this hall after listening to the presentation. So yeah, thanks everyone.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, Zhong, for that very enlightening presentation. So if you guys have just joined us, because I see some of you have just walked in just now, TLDR, Ethereum is doing fine. It's just Solana is making us look bad once in a while.